church. The church is the greatest blessing that we have. But the second greatest blessing is the ability to be a part of a family, to start a family, to raise a family. And the ideal is that our spouse will help us get to heaven. That is God's design. Sometimes things don't work out in the way we want them to, though. How many of you don't have to raise your hand, but did you watch the royal wedding a couple of weeks ago? Billions of dollars that went into it. Months and months of planning. I don't know how many individuals were involved. And there's an article in the newspaper, USA Today, that week on all of the different things that went into the royal wedding. It's estimated that some 2 billion people worldwide watched the royal wedding. That's a third of the world's population. I could just picture people, Aborigines off the coast of Australia, sitting in front of their little TV watching the royal wedding. Why do so many people get interested in this royal wedding? One individual wrote, "The global euphoria highlights the enduring ideal of marriage. For all the extravagance and fanfare of the future monarch's wedding, we recognize in it some of our deepest human aspirations and the shared nobility of the institution of marriage." We watch this great fanfare because we imagine that it's going to have a fairy tale ending. 30 years ago, Prince William's mom and dad got married, Charles and Diana, July of 1981. Ted Koppel with ABC News was reporting for that network on that royal wedding, and he made this observation. Today's marriage between Charles and Diana was a hugely magnified version of what most of us hope for. The idealized beginning of what is meant to ripen into the perfect partnership between a man and a woman. Indeed, the wedding industry is a $40 billion a year industry. All of us begin our marriages with Genesis chapter 2 in mind, where God looked at Adam, the man, and He said, "It is not good for Adam, for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." And He created woman and brought her to the man, and the man looked at her and he said, "This is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. And she shall be called woman, for she was taken out of the man. Therefore," God says, "shall a man leave his father and mother, shall cleave unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." And we begin our lives with that plan in mind. And we make a vow and we say, "I'm going to be with you through good and through bad, in rich and when we're poor." Marriage is a covenant. Marriage is a contract. Marriage is a promise. It's a promise between a man and a woman. It's a covenant between the man and the woman and God. But it's also a promise between the man and the woman and the community. It's a promise to generations past, and it's a promise to generations to come. We are going to continue that one institution that is the foundation for our society. It is a promise to the church that we are going to continue this plan that God has created from Adam and Eve until Jesus comes again. And we want that marriage to last, and we have this ideal in our minds when we come to the altar that our marriage is going to last until death do us part. I pray that Prince William and Kate's marriage does have a fairy tale ending. That it does not, in fact, end as Prince William's mom and dad's marriage ended. I'm not talking about the horrendous car crash that took Princess Diana's life. No, I'm talking about divorce. The bitter and ugly divorce that, in fact, was carried out on a worldwide stage. Because the statistics relative to divorce are alarming. Some 1 million couples divorce every year. That's about 2 a minute that a divorce is happening. 77% happen before the age of 45. 80% of those who divorce remarry, and a large percentage of those who have been divorced and remarried divorce a second time, and a third time, or like Larry King, a seventh time. And so it is a problem that has probably touched every one of our families. If it's not touched your family, it has touched surely somebody very close to you, because it is so prominent. In fact, 1 million children will experience their parents' divorce each year. 1 million children. Children born in this generation have a 50-50 chance of living in a single-parent home before they turn 18. A 50-50 chance. There was an article in Time magazine back in November of last year about marriage. Who needs marriage? And the byline in the article was, what's it good for? And there is a number of statistics in this article on marriage. The rate of marriage in the United States of America has dropped in half over the last 40 years, as more and more people decide that they would rather live in fornication than to go through the bitter experience that they saw their mom and dad go through, whose marriage ended in divorce. And so the younger generation are saying, I'm not going to get married because I don't want to experience a divorce, so I'm just going to live with whoever. And from 2009 to 2010, there was a 13% jump in the number of people who are living together without marriage. The statistics show that the rate of marriage for Americans, again, has dropped significantly. 8 times as many children will be born without married parents now than in 1970. And as we talk about the impact of divorce on the next generation, then we're talking about the impact that it has on children. And we'll come back to that several times through the lesson this morning. The Institute for American Values and the National Center on African American Marriages and Parenting rates the strength of marriages based on 5 criteria. And out of the 100 points, they say that marriages in America today are at a 60.3 rating. Back in 1970, the rating was 76.3. And so marriage is slowly eroding in our society. And the erosion of marriage is a bad omen for the future of our country, because the family is the foundation of our society. At one time, the family was the Department of Health and Education and Welfare. But with the breakdown of the family, you know who has stepped in and filled that void? It is, of course, the government. And the government has spent billions of dollars on the family and education and welfare to no good. The rate of the decline of marriage has only accelerated. And it is, again, a bad sign for the health of our society. According to this article in Time magazine, 40% of Americans think that marriage is obsolete. What's it good for? And in fact, the author of that article goes on to say that in our society today, you can get everything you want that used to be in marriage, you can get it without marriage. And so 40% of our compatriots in our society don't even think marriage serves any purpose. But at the same time, 70% of Americans either are married or want to be married. And so we find ourselves in a situation where our younger generation kind of dreads the idea of getting married, and yet they want to be married. They find themselves between a rock and a hard place where they see that marriage provides a lot of good things, even the things that are sometimes available outside of marriage, but not with the strength that is in marriage. And yet they hesitate because mom and dad got a divorce, and it was a bitter divorce, and they hate each other nowadays, and I don't want to go through that same thing. And so they're having a hard time deciding how am I going to live my life. God created marriage for the good of man, as we saw in Genesis chapter 2. And in Malachi chapter 2 and verse 16, God says, very simply, I hate divorce. I hate divorce. The God of heaven who created marriage, the God of heaven who designed marriage to fulfill all of those various needs that we have as human beings, as physical and social beings, He created marriage, and then God says, I hate the breaking up of that marriage. And we can understand why when we look at the statistics. As we proceed through our lesson this morning, what are some of the causes of divorce? First of all, the obvious reason is people tend to marry the wrong person. They don't go through a process of choosing up here. Marriage in the United States today is based more on romance and more on passion and more on fleeting feelings and how I feel right now than on whether or not this person is right for me. The biblical standard for marriage is jettisoning sacrificial love and friendship and common values, and especially common values when it comes to our religion and our spiritual life. As we saw when we had a lesson on Samson a couple of years ago, Samson saw a woman that looked good to him. And so he took her and married her. The question was not, will this person help me get to heaven? And that's the Bible's foundation for dating and making the right choice. Many people today get married who may not should get married, who have personality disorders, who have mental illnesses, who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. Now that's not to say that any of those people should not get married. It's just to say that they have greater obstacles to overcome in order to adjust to the demands of a married life. And a lot of times, young ladies especially, will get married to a young man, and when they're dating, she recognizes that he has problems with drugs or alcohol, and she thinks, well, my love will help cure him. He'll change for me. And 9 times out of 10, it does not happen. He needs help, yes, but not the kind of help that a married love can provide. He needs other kind of help, medical help, psychological help, or whatever. And then their relationship ends up breaking up because she cannot provide what he needs. And so some people should not get married. People often marry the wrong person. A second cause for divorce is both spouses working. World War II is what propelled both spouses into the job workforce. With the men on the battlefield, the women had to go to the factories and start working to provide what the United States needed both here and abroad. But when World War II ended, women kept working. And there's not anything inherently sinful in women working. We don't want to suggest otherwise. But it does create an extra challenge, and extra temptations can be there when the woman is working in a workplace where she's spending more time with other people, either married men or single men, and it might be that she's actually spending more time with somebody else than she is with her own husband at home. When you have both spouses working, there's greater strain on the time and energy that you may not have for each other once you get home from work. And that creates strain on marriage. Now that's not to say it can't happen. It just means that we have to be aware of the problem and to take things, make steps to correct and to keep it from getting bad. Along with this two-spouse working is also the problem of women having financial independence. Now, financial dependence on a husband is not a good reason to stay married, obviously. But with women working and having their own source of income, then it has simply made it easier for a woman to walk away from her family and say, I'm going to be independent now. And in fact, the statistics suggest that 2/3 of all divorces are initiated by the woman. That's not to say that she's guilty of something bad, but it shows that it's easier for divorces to occur today because of that fact. Along with those 2 points, again, is the problem of money being the priority in the family.